Welcome back to our Applied Regression Analysis series. I'm Mark Ledbetter, and this is lecture video 4, Basic Probability Part 2. In this video, we're going to cover the law of large numbers, axioms of probability, some useful properties of probability, and the addition rule. These last three you'll want to write down on your formula sheet, so you can use them to do the homework and to do the test as well. Be very helpful. So let's start with some vocabularies. Now, a trial is simply, when we're talking about trials, it's an experiment, a random experiment that we're going to repeat over and over again. You could think of it like flipping a coin, and that's a random process. You could say it's a trial because we're going to do it over and over again. So by doing it over and over again, we're repeating it. We're going to count the outcomes, and N is the sample size. It's how many times that trial has been repeated. How many trials have occurred, or how many times we've repeated the random experiment. So it depends on context what you use N for, but they can be looked at as basically the same thing. Okay, capital N of A. This is the number of times that the event A has occurred, and out of N trials. We could use it, since A is an event, we could use it later on as the number of elements that are in A, the number of possible outcomes that are in A. But in this context, the trials, and we're going to be talking about relative frequency, we're talking about the number of trials that resulted in A occurring. Okay, so a relative frequency, little rf, is defined as the number of times that A occurred divided by N, which is the number of trials that were performed. The probability of A, and this is called the probability function, P of A, is a probability set function, okay? And so it's the probability that event A occurs. And how do we talk about how relative frequency estimates the probability? So in this case, now our relative frequency was defined in this case as the number of times A occurred. So the relative frequency, I could use a subscript A there. It approaches the true probability of A occurring as N gets bigger. This is called the law of large numbers. So our relative frequency approaches the probability of the event as N increases. Okay? Now, let's talk about the classic definition of probability. S, we're going to say, is a finite sample space, and it's countable. We're going to say it's discrete because of that. Let's say that S has these events or possible outcomes, E sub 1, E sub 2, up to E sub m. So there's m different possible outcomes for this experiment. Okay. If, and this is a big if all of these have the same chance or probability of occurring, if they're all what we call equally likely of occurring, then the probability of any one of them is equal to 1 over m. And so the probability function of this set, E sub I, is equal to 1 over m, where I is 1 to m. They're the same the whole time, so they're constant. Okay. If A is some event in set S, in other words, it's a subset of S, then we can define the probability of A as N of A over M, where N of A is the number of elements that are in A, event A, and M is the number of elements in the sample space. So it's the number of items or outcomes or elements that are in set A or event A divided by all of the outcomes, possible outcomes in S. Okay, so you can see how these two values, or this value, N of A over N of S, is very similar to the relative frequency, which is N of A over N, little n, the number of sample sizes, the number of trials repeated. Okay. So now let's talk about the formal definition of probability. And these three properties here, A, B, and C, are the axioms of probability. And you can write them down on your formula sheet. You can't write the definition, please. So the probability is the real valued set function P that assigns to each event A in the sample space S a number P of A. And it's called, of course, the probability of event A occurring. And these axioms or properties have to be satisfied. I'm using axioms here for what's being defined versus later we'll use properties which are proved. So P of A has to be greater than or equal to 0. Notice it can be equal to 0. The probability that something is impossible is 0. If it's impossible for something to occur, the probability of that occurring should be 0. The probability of the sample space is equal to 1. So if you perform an experiment or random process, then at least one of those outcomes, possible outcomes, has to occur, doesn't it? So the probability, we call it certainty. So the probability of the whole sample space that some possible outcome occurs is going to be 1. Now, we're going to talk about A1, A2. Notice there's an infinite number of sets here. Okay, so A1, A2, there can be an infinite number of sets, and these are disjoint or mutually exclusive sets. And if as long as they are disjoint, and we're saying that the intersection of AI and AJ is empty, as long as I is not equal to J. Obviously, if I and J are equal, then this is not true. No set intersected with itself is empty. That's going to be the original set, right? So that can't be the same one. It has to be two different sets. Their intersection, if all of those possible intersections are empty, then and only then can we say that this is true. The probability of the union of A1, A2 up to AK, some K number of events, are equal to the probabilities of those events individually. So the unions in this case become pluses, okay? And that's for any K in the natural number, so 1, 2, 3, etc. Now, the probability of the union of this infinite number of events that are inside of S, and again, they have to be disjoint. Then again, you can change the unions to plus signs. You can think about it that way if you want, of all the infinite number of events. But they have to be countable, of course. But think about this. This value here is a probability, right? So the union of these infinite number of sets in S that are all disjoint, they all have to fit inside of S. So this probability can't be larger than 1. And we know that all probabilities are greater than or equal to 0, so this has to be at least 0. So it's got to be between 0 and 1. It's another probability. Okay, so please take some time to digest that. That's really what it takes for you to get that fully. So now let's talk about some probabilities, properties of probabilities. So the first one is that if A is contained in S, so A is some event in sample space S, then the probability of A is equal to 1 minus the probability of A complement. Well, remember that the sample space, the probability for it has to be 1. So these two things are mutually exhaustive, right? And mutually exclusive. There's nothing in the intersection. So when we add up their probabilities, it better equal 1. So that's the easy proof for that. I'm not going to go over the formal one. Property number 2 is that the probability of the empty set is equal to 0. If there's nothing in it, we go back to the definition, N of A. If A is an empty set, then the number of items in A is 0. So 0 divided by the number of elements in S is still 0. And that comes back to our definition here of probability, the classic definition of probability. All right. Third property, if A is contained in B, then the probability of A has to be less than or equal to the probability of B. And that makes sense because A is inside of B. So A is either a subset of B, as in it's smaller than B, or it's equal to B. Okay, and we're kind of loose with our symbols here. If A is, we really should be writing a bar underneath this, but most textbooks are a little sloppy, so I want you to get used to this kind of sloppy notation so that you don't get confused. And property number 4 is that for any event A in S, the probability of A has to be less than or equal to 1. Okay, it can't be larger than the probability of the whole sample space. And then we have the addition rule for two events. The probability of A or B, or the union of A with B, is equal to the probability of A plus the probability of B minus the probability of the intersection. Why? Why are we subtracting out the intersection? Remember, for the axiom of probability, these were disjoint sets. Now they're not. Now they have an intersection. So if I add up the probability of A, I'm adding the intersection, that probability of the intersection. And when I add the probability of B, I'm also adding the probability of that intersection. So I've added it twice and I only need it once. So since I've added it twice, I subtract it off once. So again, you may have to contemplate that to really let it sink in. But again, if you have questions after you think about it, you're welcome to email me or come to my virtual office hours. Again, I'm happy to help you. Please make sure that you've updated your formula sheet from this video. Please also scan your lecture notes as a PDF and place them in that Google Drive folder that I shared with you for the class. And be neat with those lecture notes. Remember, they're for you. And I will see you in the next video. Take care.